Hi, everybody. I'm having a conversation with Sara and Alex. And next week, Lock Worldwide is taking place, and both of them are speaking. And we're going to speak about the whole area of language review and very special focus of our technology in recent times. And so let me start out and welcome them both and ask, what is happening in the language industry with respect to language review? So Sara, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you, Dave, first of all, for your nice introduction and for your first question. So I think that when it comes to review in the language and localization industry, we may have very different scenarios. So we have on one side the professional review, like carried out by professional translators and linguists. On the other hand, however, and this is going to be then the main topic of our session, we have the subject matter expert review. So a specific step in a translation workflow where the advice or help from a subject matter expert is required. So think about really a highly technical content like user manual or software strings, where really less content is provided usually, screenshots are always provided. So at this stage, translators usually raise queries to the project managers, and the project managers are not always subject matter experts at the same time. So in a big enterprise scenario, you really have specific teams just representing the stakeholders and sometimes also translation requesters that really know what we're talking about. And these people are then often asked to really perform a review in a CAT tool or a translation management system, because of course, for project managers, it's very important that any changes carried out during review are also kept in a translation memory. So we really have very different scenarios, but still one tool, one ecosystem that has to be able to suit both needs. So I think this is the main challenge that needs to be addressed, and this is going to be then our main topic.
Right, so this idea of having context and being able to have a subject matter expert review content for correctness, I guess, rather than linguistic accuracy is still very important by the sounds of it. Alex, what are your views on this?
Yeah, I'll agree that it's obviously one of the very important topics in our industry. However, oftentimes neglected as part of the dynamic growth, dynamic expansion of the industry itself, right? There's been a very impressive progression on various areas, take MT, AI, natural language processing, or even other related technologies, while fundamentals like the review, which in many content types, in many domains is actually an essential, integral part of the process, have been left behind, right? And instead of those being part of the actual workflow, part of the system as it is the ideal scenario, they're still outside of a system. They're being performed offline. They're being detached from the process. And many times there's a very convoluted scenario and a very convoluted workflow going on that creates a huge amount of overhead for everybody involved, the project manager, the reviewer, the actual linguist. And essentially in the end, not only is the workflow suffering, there's also the time to market suffering, there's the quality suffering, and there are costs suffering as well, right? So I think that there's definitely area for improvement, and that's what we're going to show later on, and what we're going to discuss during Lock Worldwide, that we have certain parts of XTM that can help reviewers be part of that actual process, part of the workflow.
Right, and that area is we call computer-aided review, right? CAR. And why is this whole area, the CAR area specifically, so important? Sara?
Well, the concept of CAR really arises from what Alex just showed and explained, really trying not to detach the review process from the actual online workflow any longer, trying to really not impact the time to market, and really making sure that the review process also has a tool in place that is able to support the subject matter experts exactly in the same way as a tool is able to do with professional linguists. So for us, it was really important to have a technology that serves that purpose and supports these stakeholders as well. And CAR is not just It's based mainly on a specific feature that we are releasing within Workbench. But I think that also Alex is going to agree with me, and this is also going to be a part of our session at Lockword. There is really an entire set of tools, features, and functionalities in XTM that can really support subject matter experts and reviewers in general during the review process. So we see CAR really as a long-term solution rather than one-time feature.
Right, and Alex, sort of under the engine a little bit, how does the XTM cloud solution support this?
Right. Yeah, as Sara said, it's a combination of features, right? We're talking about a set of different modules within XTM that allow the manager of the system, the project managers, and everybody involved to configure XTM in such a way to be able to introduce non-users such as reviewers and make their life easier and make the system accessible to them, right? We start off with one of our fresher features, which is the fact that you can now customize the workbench, our actual translation interface, meaning that reviewers can make it as simple as they want so they're not overwhelmed with information. Admins can even pre-configure it for them. They can move things around if they want. Different modules, different windows of that specific system, that specific window can be moved around to preference, which is also a very powerful asset to make it more convenient for users to use. And apart from that, there's also inherent functionality within the system to support that process. It's one thing getting a reviewer in, and then it's a different thing having the backbone in order to make sure that everything that they do is also captured within XTM, within any system, right? For that purpose, we have linguistic quality assurance modules that are embedded within XTM. We also have a certain workflows that allow for bidirectional processing. They are all for seamless arbitration with linguists. There's live TM updates, and everything essentially happening within XTM just ensures that what I mentioned before, time to market, cost, and quality are all respected and are all supported. So we're definitely going to show all that in our demonstration during Lockword, but just as a general sentiment, a general, I would say, point here, there is a lot of modules coming together to form exactly what we call CAR within XTM.
Sounds exciting. And moving forward and looking out a little bit, what can we expect next in this space? Sara, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think now we can only be excited about the users' feedback that we're going to gather after finally releasing the first iteration car reviewing Workbench. To us, it's really important to understand the usability of what we just released, and then, of course, develop and work on subsequent iterations based on the user feedback. And then we have, of course, the idea of a visual mode, like in context review, in context translation as well, of course. And we know that especially for subject matter expert, it's really important to have a very intuitive interface, and in context review is naturally a part of that. So for us, it's important to make sure that multiple file types are supported in context editing and review mode as well. So this is for sure the second priority in our CAR strategy for the future.
Alex, any thoughts on what we're going to see in this space moving forward?
Absolutely. When we first started this discussion, I did mention about how dynamic the industry is, right? And there's different streams that are innovating and evolving our industry. And I mentioned just the basic titles: natural language processing, machine translation, and generally speaking, AI, right? In which we've seen a lot of progression in our industry, but primarily in other industries that typically affect localization. So they're kind of the pioneers, and we're following most of the times, right? There's a lot of movement in that area, which is affecting the world of linguists, the world of project managers in terms of automation, in terms of enhanced usability, linguistic AI within any tool that they're using. Now, the reviewers, while we want to keep it simple for them, that's the whole point, right? To have a simple, intuitive, easy to access interface, that doesn't mean that those streams of innovation cannot support their work, right? They cannot influence and they cannot impact their work. So the long vision ahead and what I'm thinking will happen in the future very likely here is that whatever is enhancing the experience for other users within the industry will also start enhancing the experience of the reviewers. The first step is to make sure that they work in the same systems, they benefit from all the different functionality available to linguists, to other system users, and then add on top of that to further enhance this integration in their own experience.
So a natural evolution of user interface and usability that translators and linguists currently have that moves down to other parts of the language supply chain.
Absolutely. I have to say that, as said before, we want to keep it simple. It's a point. That's the entire goal here, to make sure that there is a review process that is supported by computer aided in this case. But then we want to spice it up. There's more that can be added to it that doesn't necessarily make the life of the reviewers complicated, but based on the feedback, based on their own requirements, based on what they start experiencing once they use a system more and more, as opposed to using just a PDF file, it will naturally come. There will be feedback, as it came from the linguists as well, right? Cut tools have evolved radically over the last 20 years because exactly of their users. Similarly, I see the same thing happening with the reviewers here.
Very good. So not complex, but more powerful simplicity.
Yep.
So folks, you heard about CAR here first. Please reach out to us here at XTM International if you'd like to find out more. Thank you both very much for your time. Have a great show at Lock Worldwide next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.